Good morning, West Coast, and good afternoon, East Coast. Welcome to our premiere webinar of our new series here at 2Plus2. Before we get too far, I just want to confirm connectivity and technical setup. I do have a colleague that's on a different computer. If there are any concerns or questions or problems that anyone's having, I'm just going to give that a minute to see if anyone's having any issues. So today what we're going to do is we're going to keep this tight and short. This is the beginning of what will be a monthly series that will be on Tuesdays, the first Tuesday of the month, 10 o'clock West Coast time, and that's 1 p.m. East Coast time. These will be about 30 minutes, so the idea is that it won't take a big chunk of your day, but we hope to get into some pretty meaty topics. Today we're doing content planning for your new air quote website. My name is Kathy. I'm what we call the CIA here at 2Plus2, which is the Chief Information Architect. I happen to also be the CEO, but I kind of like the CIA title a little bit better. I've also got Sally Dew here. She's our Creative Director, and I've got Anthony Barada, who's our CTO, in case we have any questions that move into either more technical things or more designy things than I can handle. So thank you again for being here. So in this webinar today, I'm providing an overview of the content planning process, specifically the effort to assess and migrate your content. Based on interest today, we'll probably offer some deep dives into specific parts because, as you can imagine, with a short time frame, this is a big topic. We'll just skim the surface. But our plan is to provide some tools to help you answer questions like, should this content stay or should it go? We'll cover strategic considerations to develop a balanced approach between doing the minimum, aka move your content as is, and the daunting reality of a rip and replace approach, which would require generating all new content. So you have a brand new website. Now what? You've redesigned your website, which invariably will include some new information architecture. You may be planning a migration to a new CMS platform or from static HTML to a CMS. You may also be consolidating websites or merging with a new partner. This approach that we're going to talk about today can work for external websites as well as for internal intranets. What we're proposing is really a process. It's a process and an approach to make sure that content planning happens proactively and is a focused effort in the project plan. The goal is to start the planning early, create a schedule of each set of tasks, and line these up with your overall website redesign project plan. With some upfront planning and awareness, you'll launch your new website with stellar content that brings home your message, product, and advantage, which is our goal. So you have an awesome design and some kick-ass technology that will truly transform your business marketing success. Now you just have to get it populated with content. Before we jump into the 6 steps, I just want to walk through a couple of definitions and guidelines that are really applicable throughout the process. So first of all, what do we mean by content? Content means pages, media, documents, news, events, FAQs. It could also be metadata, the data about the content, so categories, tags, all your SEO entities. It could also be features like forms, searches, quizzes, or maybe you even have full-on processes as part of your website, membership or purchases. So all of these things are going to need to be implemented on your new site, but when we talk about content migration, we really just mean the content and getting it from one platform to another. That will be our focus for today. The next thing I want to talk about is avoiding the big bang. So a couple of things. It's highly unlikely that you will be able to completely automate the process of migration. It's also highly unlikely that you really want to move everything exactly as is. Finally, it's highly unlikely that you can afford a truly sequential process where content is massaged, edited, generated, finalized, and then ready for the new system. Therefore, it's really advisable that you get started and build iterations into your plan. For automated migration, the code will get better with each iteration, and you'll better understand exactly what can be moved programmatically or blind versus what needs to be done manually, allowing for some modifications or massaging of the data as part of that process. So I think we're just about ready to get started. It's really interesting. Content is hot right now. Everyone agrees that content is king, But what we see time after time is that content planning and migration in particular aren't accounted for appropriately in the project plan. The reality is that content migration is typically underestimated in terms of effort and underrepresented in the project plan. So because of this, it gets to be the effort that really can derail your project timeline and budget. So start early and make it a priority. Ideally, content migration is happening in parallel with your design. So let's go through the 6 easy steps. I'm going to kind of breeze through them here, and then we'll dig into each one in detail. So number 1, you need to perform a content audit. Number 2, you're going to have to map your current content into your new site. Number 3, you're going to have to figure out what the gaps are, and I guarantee you there will be some. The next is finalizing your new CMS structure, and that's really going to talk about the actual breakdown of each type of content. Finally, you're going to actually do the migration, which again may be hopefully some combination of automated and manual. And then you're going to validate that content. And this is where you're really going to want to go in iterations, because again, this will get better as you move along. It's also a great opportunity to really involve your customers or your employees or your the rest of your staff as part of really validating that you've got that migration done correctly. You don't want to do it in a vacuum. So first we'll talk about the content audit, and this is one where having a complete and accurate inventory of your content is really a critical first step. There are a number of techniques you can use depending on the complexity and the depth of your site. One thing you can do is you can use a tool to export all of the pages of a website. You can dump this into Excel, and then you'll have a pretty good start at a complete list of content in terms of pages. I'm going to show you a little bit. This is actually a tool that I'll be providing as part of a download at the end of the webinar. But we use a tool called InSpider Sitemap Creator, and what it does is allow you to really dump all of your data into a sorted list of URLs. That's actually also nice because now you have a link right to your URLs. Another option is if you're moving from an existing CMS, you can use the page structure or the outline of your current content management system to really scan and get an outline of your current site. But the goal is to get a fairly detailed list of your content that needs to move and then start making some decisions. I'm a huge fan of Excel. I love it, and we'll go through a couple of iterations of that right now. So basically what you'll see here is each page on your website ends up being a row on the website. You'll also notice down at the bottom of the spreadsheet, we're going to walk through a couple of these sections of this tool. So the first thing you can do, because you're sorted by the URL names, is you can start to add sections. So now I can see on this particular made-up URL name website, I've got a campus section, I've got a central section, I've got a central business section, etc. So now you're starting to get at what some of the main probably navigation is of your current site, but it's backed up by having the actual detail of the pages there. The next thing you can do is actually start making some initial assessment. Like, what's the status of this? Does it need to move? Is it going to be archived? Is it just going to be deleted? It doesn't need to go anywhere. And you can start making some initial sort of qualifications of assessing your current data. Another thing I like to include is a priority, because again, often you may run out of time. And so knowing if something has to be there versus is nice to have versus could come at a later phase will actually help you as you get into some decisions getting closer to your deadline. Finally, there's what is the level of effort to really get it in shape for your new site. We'll come back to this a little bit. That'll be a little bit clearer as we go through some of this. Another tool which I didn't include here, which might be helpful, is actually looking at your website statistics, the usage. There may be parts of your site that aren't getting any use at all. Especially with intranets, we find with clients that can sometimes be an opportunity for pruning or for a completely different re-envisioning of that data if it's really important. So now let's talk about mapping the content, step number 2. I think actually it was Yogi Bear. I think the actual quote was, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. So I've adjusted that a little bit, but basically we need to know where we're going. So the information architecture for your new site is your target. Now all we need to do is map your existing content into that new structure. This can be done in an iterative manner, starting with high-level concepts and then moving to more detail. So remember that spreadsheet, we're going to go back to that. So one of the things I like to do right off the bat is start making some decisions. You can see now I've collapsed the website to just show the sections over on the left. And because I don't really care about the URLs initially for this high-level mapping. Now I can say, is this going to be a header or main navigation component? Is it going to be a footer component? Or is it actually maybe going to be some kind of global widget? Is it going to show up on the home page? Or do I even know? But it lets you start making some decisions right off the bat about how things are mapping. So then depending on where you are with your information architecture, you can start adding in some more details. So now you can see what I've done is I've added some more columns to the spreadsheet, and we've actually expanded the header to now include some of what would be my new sections in the proposed new design. So getting around, what we do, look it up, who are we, there might be a calendar tool, and now you can actually just very simply start making some X's to start mapping things around. What's going to happen pretty quickly is you're going to identify where you either have current content that has no home on the new site, or you have sections of the new site that have no content that's coming over, which means you're going to have to actually generate completely new content. So that leads us to really quantifying the gap. What's it going to take to get from where you currently are to where you want to be? So now you have a framework. It's time to assess some differences in it and make some decisions. One easy place to start, like I said, is the holes in the target site. If this is content that's going to need to be developed, so what's the time, effort, and cost to make that happen? Once you understand what's missing, some work can go into developing a specific estimate of what that effort is. This is also a time where we're going to start figuring out, in terms of the content, what can be automated, what can be programmatically moved from your current site to your new site. Some really good candidates for that are standard content types like news, events, FAQs, even about kinds of content or team resources, because these are pretty standard, and the chances are that the data elements about a news story, for instance, you're probably going to have a lot of them in your current site that are going to map over to the new site. Remember that when we're talking about automated migration, we're really going from a database to a database kind of situation. So documents are another whole thing, and there may be tagging associated with that, but that's actually a little bit bigger issue, and we'll have to save that for another webinar. So what's the next step? Finalize the new CMS architecture or structure, and the devil really is in the details. From a content perspective, you now know what you want to achieve, and the chances are that you've selected your new CMS because of its capabilities, its ease of use, its technical stability, and its ability to grow with your organization. So now it's time to work with your technical team to finalize what we call the CMS architecture. This includes the overall content tree and a complete specification for each content type. It's each bit of information that will be developed for each one of those content types. For instance, your news story, you might need a headline, you might need a subhead, a byline, a short description, and then the article. In the new design, you want to be very visual with your stories, so now you need an image for every single article. So the new site may also have related content, and what this may mean is that you also want a way to reference that same news story when it shows up as related content, as you're cross-promoting content around your site. So it's really at this point that you've got to get the content ready for final massaging needed to realize the new site. So again, being very meticulous and mapping to the new CMS ensures that you have the data to support your vision. All right, we're already up to step number 5. Sharpen your pencils. It's time to migrate the data. So the time has come to do the actual migration. And as we talked about before, in some cases, you're going to be able to automate this effort for all or most of the data elements. News, events, FAQs, we talked about that. These are easier to write scripts for to move the content, or you may find that you have a tool. We work in a couple of standard CMSs. DNN Evoke is one of those. Kentico is another one. Kentico, realizing the importance of data migration, has actually just released a series of tools to really help you do some of that internal migration, and we're working on that for one of our clients right now. One thing to remember also is in massaging the data, it may turn out, in many cases we're seeing trends for more visuals and less words. So what you had on your old site as a summary of an article or a recap of a particular service or offering may be too wordy right now. So again, you will find that out very quickly as you start your migrating. So again, back to that point we made at the beginning, where you're going to want to start your migration, validate it, tune your tools, repeat and rinse, and keep the process going. So that's really the validate and adjust portion. Your automated processes won't be perfect and they won't account for everything. So you really do need to leave room for iterations in the process. You want to break the effort into phases and be sure to get feedback. Validate that you've got it right. And this is true both for automated and manual cut and paste. As we said, it's really helpful if you can do this in parallel with the design implementation, because once your actual content is expressed in the new design, there might be some finessing that you want to have even in the visuals of way things are looking based on your actual content. In some cases, for really large projects, the content team may want to get started ahead of time. As we talked about, this can be a really big process. So, and the actual design may not be finalized, or the design might be finalized, but the new tools may not be completely implemented. In cases like this, you may want to set up a rudimentary, unstyled version of your new CMS just to get the content migration process started. It can really help you organize things, and you can actually use it as a tool. Again, it's sort of another access of identifying what may be missing or where you've over or underestimated the effort to get that content in. One thing we did for one of our intranet clients was we were going for a completely different organization of the overall intranet. We were moving from a very location-specific to a very function-specific. And as part of really assessing the content, it turned out that one of the easy ways was to set up our new tool and start just copying, pasting, raw content into what we believed would be the new structure. Images were broken, but that was okay. We got a chance to kind of see what would level 1, 2, and sometimes third levels of navigation look like as we go along. At some point, the last thing I want to talk about is there's probably going to be a sync point on the content. If your site is live, you're going to need to at some point decide that on some day or for some time period, you're going to have to freeze things in your production system so you can do your final content migration and then, turn things on for go live. There are a couple of other considerations that are around the data that, again, we aren't going to have time for today, but we'll hopefully do some new webinars on these. One is tagging, and by that I mean really setting up taxonomy and categorization that really support findability of content on your site and do help you promote things like cross-promotion within your site and do more like this, or if you like that, or related content. Search, everyone knows that many people actually start with search. They don't even bother with the navigation. So having a powerful search is really critical. SEO, also very important. So here we're really talking about metadata, whether it's tags or keywords or titles. That's a whole nother piece, and that's probably something that you're going to want to do a pretty good review of before you go to your new site. The last thing, and this is the one we've learned, sort of by the school of hard knocks, is bookmarks. You don't know how many people out in the world have bookmarked your old site, which means that you're going to want to have a way that for them not to just get your, although beautifully designed, standard 404 page when they hit that bookmark. So you can develop a series of mapping from all your common pages in the old site to your new site. Again, that's a whole topic we can talk about hopefully sometime in the future. And I'm getting the hand waving that we're getting close to time. So are you ready to develop your content strategy? I really, really appreciate this, and I'm going to see if there are any questions right now. So I have one here that's about images and tagging images. And so I think that Images are an interesting part of your content migration strategy. One thing that we've done is in that spreadsheet that we showed you a while ago, if you can make a note of where the pages have images, you can actually keep track of that as another access, both on that individual page one, as well as a separate inventory of images that are going to have to move. So I think that's a tool to help you. One big item is often images may not be formatted correctly for your new design. So another aspect, and again, this is probably a separate discussion, but one thing that will come out of your new website design is going to be a format or specification of what the image size should be. And that is also something that will really help you as you're starting to build the to-do list or the gap analysis between getting from your current site over to the new site. So I think that's a helpful one, and it actually could be another spreadsheet within that overall tracking piece. So I have a question about what's the best what's the best CMS? Wow, there are a lot of CMSs out there. There are also a lot of open source CMSs, WordPress, Drupal, Joomla. There are also several level tiers as you get into needing more sophisticated tools around workflow for content publishing and or for staging. Some of the ones that we've worked with, it used to just be DNN, .NET Nuke, and now they're rebranded as Evoke. One of the things that we like about Evoke is it's built on the Microsoft platform. And so for us, that's a technical decision that we've made. So deciding what's the best CMS also depends on your technical stack and how tied you are to your IT department within your organization. Finally, you can go up the scale. Another tool that we've worked in is one called Kentico. That at its enterprise level will have things like we'll have a whole separate instance that you can use so you can actually do migration between different instances of the server. There was just a question about how long does the migration take. And again, I'm gonna say, well, it depends. It depends on how big your project is. If your site is, oh, I don't know, 100 pages, and many of your items are fairly straightforward, I think you can probably do much of your planning and your mapping in a couple of weeks. And then again, I don't want to speak for your developers, but presumably some straightforward scripts are really easy to write. I think content migration there can, the actual tools to do the content migration might take a week. But then again, you're going to want to have some time in there to refine and actually make sure that you've got it right. So I would leave some cycles in for iteration. I've just been passed another question, which is, will the recording be available after the webinar? Absolutely. We will make this available, as well as I'm going to provide an Excel version of the spreadsheet that we talked about. It just has sample data in it now, but I think that will be hopefully a good start to help you think through some of this. I'll also mention that we'll include the target transcript, although obviously I veered from that as we went through the presentation, but that will include a couple of the tools that we've mentioned and things like that. So thank you for asking that. And I'll do one last check. I want to thank everybody. I want to remind you that this is part of a monthly series. Our next one will be, looking at the calendar, May 3rd, which is a Tuesday, 10 o'clock Pacific Coast time, 1 p.m. East Coast time. We are going to keep these to a half an hour so that hopefully it's something you can just roll into your regular schedule. If you have any other thoughts or ideas for what you want to see next, let us know. I will tell you that our next webinar is going to be something around SharePoint. So I haven't totally figured it out, but we're going to figure it out in the next couple days. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to be with us today, and have a great day.